something like this. But even then, I'm not sure uh, if I'm gonna miss my last red bishop. Probably, yeah, but how big of a deal it is, you know? Anyway, I don't think he will play knight e4, honestly. I think, or maybe he will. Maybe he doesn't like.
How else would you defend the e
That's true.
pawn, right? So
That's true.
unless you play rook e1
That's
or
true.
push like
Also
that,
important to point out, maybe f5 is also a move here. You
f5
know,
is possible. There's a check.
check.
There's maybe two checks even
There's two
actually,
checks. That's true. That's true.
but king probably just moves and then yeah I like black here I think.
Maybe I need to just go back, then decide what to do. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's not quite clear. Yeah, I'll probably play knight e4 since I'm not a big fan of this resulting position. Oh wait, he did play knight c4 already. Okay,
Oh, okay.
so I think most likely we will see b5. I think that's Lazarus' idea.
Yeah.
I don't think we will see anything else.
And both these players are less than 40 minutes on their clock, so time's winding down. We're going to start seeing some action pick up as these games are getting towards the end game. But I wanted to give a shout out to all the viewers that have tuned in. We've got Magpie has been here for quite some time. We had Sack Checkmate, who is known as International Master Alex Katz, tuning in. We've got Jenny, and we had another streamer, Emily, tuning in from Charlotte. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I think we're gonna take a break here
Oh yeah.
um,
Okay.
before the
Are you
action
hungry?
starts ramping up.
Are you hungry?
Yeah, I think we're due for some time here.
We
So.
deserve it for the hard work. Yeah, yeah. Let's get some food.
All right, how's that sound, Daryl? All right. Everyone, thanks for sticking around, and also thanks to anyone else that have tuned in since then. As a reminder, this is the President's Cup, also known as the Final Four of the U.S. College Chess Championship. This is a team event. 4 teams have qualified from Pan Am's, which was just about 3 months ago. And yeah, we have our first round underway, just about over halfway done. We've had UT Dallas up against St. Louis University and University of Texas Rio Grande up against Webster University. Brian, where have we left off?
So last thing we saw, I mean, it's been how many hours has it been since the round started? 2 hours and a half, right? And still all the games are going on, which means there's some fight going on in all the matches. What do you say if we first take a look at how the hometown team is doing, UTD?
Of course.
See how the games develop since we left them. So last thing we looked at was this position after c5. We were saying that potentially a black could try to get his bishop out of the game.
Real quick, Brian.
Yes,
Who are these players and what teams are they on?
that's true. Good question, Joe. So this match is between SLU, St. Louis University, with the white pieces. Their player is the grandmaster from Netherlands, Robbie Kevishvili, against UTD with the black pieces grandmaster Ivan Skitsko from Moldova. And this is where we left the game. Last time we were saying that c5 could potentially get the bishop out of the game. So c3, c4, bishop c2, and I honestly thought, like, visually speaking, the black should be fine, but maybe putting these pawns in the light squares have become a potential weakness for black in the long run. Uh, and now Ivan decides to go for b4. It's a pretty concrete move. I would say most often than not, if the position is equal, I would say just keep things calm and then decide what to do. In this case, Ivan decided to push right away with b5, a5, c5, and maybe this could potentially create problems for himself as now as you were pointing out that the bishop it tends to be favorable in open positions in any endgame, right? I think this might be the case where white might be able to get like a pass pawn here. This pawn c4 might become weak. Let's say, yeah, pawn takes, check, king
Are
e4.
these moves coming in live?
Yes, these moves are coming in live. We have
Wow.
premium VIP broadcasts. We don't have to wait for the 10 minutes. And and yeah, this is what I was worried about.
Oh my goodness.
The pawn on c4 will fall, and even if black tries to get counterplay on this flank, it's gonna be pretty hard once again because this bishop is a monster in either supporting the pass pawn on b2, but also in protecting white's pawn. Like imagine as soon as I just place my pawn on h3 and my bishop either on e4 or f3, then I don't need to worry about these pawns. I can just keep pushing my own pass pawn, and black has pretty little counterplay. So yeah, this is looking quite dangerous for black. I mean the evaluation is saying it's already winning for white, but
Wow. No, that is actually a huge update. This is probably the most convincing position we've seen so far. This is the first round of the event, and looks like Robbie Kavlashvili, captain, board one from St. Louis University, should be able to get a full point out of this position thanks to Ivan pushing prematurely on the queen side, creating a weakness for himself in a position that we thought was completely even.
yeah, I mean we thought most likely it will end in a draw unless, as I told you, like someone tries to overpush or something. I think this is what happened in this case. I don't think black needed to create these light square weaknesses on c4 and b5, and that's what led us to this position, right? And now Ivan is trying to come out with some sort of idea or trick in order to complicate the position, because the thing is that it's not only that I mean the evaluation is saying it's winning or whatever. It's more about also from the human point of view. It's pretty easy to see what white moves will be in the next couple of moves. For example, he would just take the pawn, play king d4, king c4, then start pushing the b pawn, and this bishop will take care of protecting the g and h pawns. And there's not really that much counterplay for black. That's the main issue here. Like it's a position that you could say people might even win in blitz, you know, without even putting too much effort. That's the main issue here. So maybe Ivan is able to come out with some sort of trick or defense here, hopefully for UTD. But so far, it's looking like Robbie should be able to convert for slew. So yeah, we will see. We can take a look at the other games to see how the rest of the match is going. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, we definitely have to know how the other boards are doing because this match format is a team format. So even if Robbie wins as board one for his team, that doesn't mean that his team would win because he still needs his other boards to get some results. So let's take a look at the lower boards in this match.
Let's see. So that was board one. Board two, we have with the white pieces International Master Andrei Makovey from Moldova against Grandmaster Dan Basurin from Mongolia. And we left up at this position after Rook D1. We were saying most likely it will end in a draw after some simplifications. So white play Rook D1. Black continue Rook D8. As I was saying, black wants to trade pieces and just reach an equal endgame. White took, queen takes, and g3. Yeah, and now white would just try to slowly improve his position with moves like h4, maybe eventually some knight f5, h5. White is definitely preferable here. I would say if anyone is pushing for the win here, it's definitely white, especially with these sort of weaknesses like a5 and b7. But most often than not, if black plays properly, it should be close to a draw here. So g3, knight f8, king g2. White just slowly improves his position, knight e6, and knight c4. Attacking on a5, also kind of asking black, so what are you going to do next? Because now the queen is tied up to the defense of the a5 pawn. Then Basurin play h6, just giving a square for his king. How do you call it? The loof? Is that what it's called nowadays?
Loof. Well, the popular term, thanks to chess bras, I would say is the snorkel.
The snorkel.
Yeah, so that lets black's king breathe a little bit. Similar idea, but yes. Also, just again, a reminder, Dan Basurin with the black pieces is representing the St. Louis University team playing against Andre McAvey with the white pieces representing UT Dallas.
Correct. So what I would think is going on right now in the matches is that Andre is looking at Ivanspor. He sees that he's gonna lose, and he understands that somehow he needs to create as many problems as possible in order to equal the match, right?
That's right. And it's got to be hard as a teammate seeing your other teammates not doing so well and not being
Right.
able to help them. Really, they're strict about communication, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean you cannot communicate with your teammates during the matches. All you can do is look at their boards, try to assess what's going on, and then play based on that. And so I think yeah, here Andre might try to push, but most often than not, I think Black should be able to equalize. Let's say B3.
Oh, not a fan of B3. I thought
Yeah,
putting the pawn on A4 puts the pawn even deeper into White's territory, making that pawn even potentially more susceptible to attack. It's already kind of eyed by the queen on E4 through the knight, so I assume if the knight moved maybe to E5, that would be a strong idea. Um, do you think Batsurin would have to play something like queen? Okay, yeah, you're
queen,
pointing out knight.
queen A5 probably something like this. And yeah, I mean Black. Once again, I think Black is fine. The main thing is that he doesn't have that many weaknesses apart from A4. And then if White is not able to coordinate any sort of attack against the pawn A4, then the position should be equal. As one one weakness that cannot be taken advantage of, just leaves the position equal, and therefore here Andre play B3. Maybe just trying to simplify more the position. And now it's Dan Basur's turn. I'm curious what Andre is playing against. Pawn takes, knight c5. I would think queen c2, but yeah, maybe. I mean, this move b3 tells me, I'm just gonna try to simplify a little bit and maybe just go for a draw. Maybe I don't know, because like I don't see it as a move that is trying to push or create pressure, because it's getting rid of Black's a4 pawn. So yeah, we will see. I still think this game will most likely end in a draw. Honestly,
Well, we thought that about Robbie's game.
that's true. That's true.
So
That's true.
lots of chess left to be played in this particular game, but I just want to give a huge shout out to Botez Live, who just rated us with over 3,000 viewers.
Jesus Christ, I'm
So-
famous, mom. Turn on the TV.
Hopefully some of them will stick around for the 10-minute delay to hear our verbal shout out. But yeah, thank you and welcome. I believe Botez is currently in Paris, France, for some event going on. Maybe some of the viewers that stuck around can let us know. But yes, welcome. And again, this is the President's Cup happening live at UT Dallas. This is going to determine the U.S. College Team Championship. And this is round one. So we will be back again later today. Round two will start at 5 p.m. Eastern. And the final round will actually be happening tomorrow, Sunday, at 11 a.m. Eastern. So hopefully we'll see you all back again tomorrow to find the conclusion of this tournament that determines the championship of the U.S. colleges. So, yeah, right now we're looking at St. Louis University versus UT Dallas. And board one's looking really good for SLU.
Yeah.
But board two maybe is a bit more of a draw or an even position. All right, sorry about that, everyone, but we should be back now. And of course, when I say now, I mean in 10 minutes when you see this. So yeah, basically we were looking at E4 as a possibility, and maybe it was just a move too slow, but F3, as you were pointing out, one of Black's defenses in this line is an eventual knight to e4, which wouldn't be possible with a pawn on f3.
Right. Also, I think Harsha wanted to just take it slow and play e4. But the thing is that I don't think he has enough time to arrange his pieces the way he wants. Once again, it all has to do with this king of f1. I think it causes a lot of trouble for coordination for the white pieces, and therefore it's pretty hard to attack when your king is so weak all the time. Like for example, if the king were to be somewhere like h2, let's say, and then I have my rook on g2, the other one on g1, then yeah, I think white is doing great, but because of this, all this tempo that will take him to coordinate his pieces, is that black should be able to generate enough counterplay to be better even. So after f3, b4, knight e2, and now takes, and he has to right away open the position, taking advantage of the fact of the king on f1. Pawn takes, queen e7, attacks both e3 and a3. Good move. Bishop f2, and Durin takes the pawn. Yeah, I mean there's no attack, honestly. There's no compensation for the pawn. Simply things went wrong for white, and here Harsh is in a pretty hard situation. Queen f5, rook e7, sort of defending on f7 just in case. Knight f4, g6, and queen c2.
Did you want to sacrifice?
I kind of wanted to. I would think that he didn't see anything clear, and they're both in time trouble. Although that might be another reason why to sacrifice, because they're both in time trouble.
Yeah.
I would think he didn't see anything clear, and therefore he didn't go for it. Like either knight f7 or knight g6. He saw, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces around the king. This attack shouldn't work, and yeah, he just went back. c5 and rook d1. Yeah, no, rook d1 is just, I think it's not going on the way, it's not in the spirit of the attack, Maybe something like either bishop h4, no, but that will hang the pawn e3. Then maybe h4 and h5, maybe. Something like this, and just ignore this, I think this could have great trouble, but yeah, it's not easy to calculate all this, especially with such a low time on the clock. I think this is just gonna be a matter of who is faster in calculating time travel here. I think that's gonna be the main factor. So black plays a4, white takes, queen takes. Of course, turning the queens will just be 0-1 immediately, because the attack disappears, and black has an extra pass pawn. Oh, he actually took. There was no other option. Then honestly, I think the game should be decided.
Yeah, Gleb is doing great with the outside pass pawn on the A file, and also just an absolute time scramble for Harsha, living off the increment right now. This is not looking good for Webster, which is surprising given that Webster's the #1 seed, and Harsha's got the white pieces. So Gleb's doing a great job here. And also, I just wanted to shout out, the other match has actually completely concluded. All 4 games have finished, and Slew did end up winning thanks to Nicolosi on board 3. So Balaji could not hold, and Slew wins their match 2.5 to 1.5. And all 4 games for Webster are still going on. So maybe we take a look at some of the other games.
Well, yeah. First of all, I just want to finish saying that this position is lost for for white, because of the pass pawn and the lack of coordination of the white pieces. Like once again, this king on f1, rook on g1, without actually getting to convert to an attack, was just a waste of time for white. And in the end, black was able to generate the pass pawn. So black should be winning soon. As you pointed out, yeah, the other match is over. In the end, Robin converted the endgame with the extra pawn, with the bishop against the knight. Andre took the draw. Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, yeah, sometimes it is what it is. Even if you see your teammates are not doing great on their boards, if there's no way to push, then you just gotta take the result. You gotta be objective. Because also it's important to mention that the tournament is decided by individual points, not by match points. So every board counts basically. It's not the same to lose 4-0 to 2.5.
Cumulative out of how many?
Rounds. It's 3 rounds, 4 games, so each team can make up to 12 points, basically.
Got it. So it's not about the match result.
No.
It's about the point, the
Individual
points.
points, yeah. Which is funny, because this is a team event, right? But in this format, it's always been like this. It's all about the individual boards, basically.
That's a really good point to make. So it's about maximizing the points that you can get.
Correct. And yeah, so they just went for a draw here. Then yeah, Nicolisi ended up converting with the extra piece. Let's see how he did.
So he put that rook to good use, or the knight.
Yeah, I mean Black just got into a checkmate net, and yeah, knight 3 coming.
Yeah, save the bishop, hit the rook, and like you said, knight f3.
Yeah, and this
And
guy.
the second rook, that's gonna be lights out.
Yeah, and he knows there's no point in taking the rook. He just goes for a checkmate, and that's it basically.
Yeah, bishop stops it, and brilliancy.
94.
Distract the bishop and get mated.
Nice.
Otherwise, now both rooks are hanging.
Repeated.
Always repeat, but don't threefold. So
No.
here he takes the rook, takes a pawn, and
Resigns.
Balaji had enough.
Yeah, it's a rook up already. There's
So-
no point. And Aditya did end up converting this position. After e6, this pawn just promotes. So yeah, the match ends 2.5 to 1.5. Once again, it's all about individual points. So even if you lose the first match, I mean, as long as you recover in the next two, there's still chances, So yeah, let's take a look at the match that is still going on. Let's see, Dudin already won. Yeah, so that's an important victory for UTRGV. I think winning with the black pieces on board 1 is a pretty important result always. Let's see, Lazaro's game. Let's just sort of go through it. Yeah, so he went knight c4, and then he went knight e3. I'm curious if b5 was a move here. Was b5? Yeah, it was a move. Knight takes, pawn takes, and black will have been fine here. I don't know why Lazaro didn't play b5. Maybe he thought, okay, like he's gonna take on d6 anyway, so I might as well just, wait like this, and then I can play bishop h3. But I think the main key of b5 was also to sort of push back the knight to c3. Which it's kind of a clumsy square. The c5 is blocked, and I think black would have been completely fine here after the d5, for example. But yes, so he went for queen d7, knight e3, bishop h3, knight c5, queen c8. He didn't want to take because probably he assessed that these 2 pawns are hanging. Although in reality, a7 is not hanging because I can always play rook a8 and then take back on a2, right?
Yeah, with the activity.
Correct. But Lazaro decided to go for queen c8, knight e4, good move, takes. And before the break, I pointed out that usually you don't want to take with this pawn, if you have a bishop on g2. In this case, though, since it's gonna be treated, and also since you have already the knight on e3, you will get probably something like knight e3 or knight e5. It is fine to stay with the pawn, Also, you open those arrows are crazy. The rook on d1, the rook on c1,
Yeah.
So the game continues. Takes b6. Let's just speed up because I want to get to the time scrabble.
Trade of rooks.
Trade rooks.
Get the queen in.
Get the maneuvering.
Check.
Joga bonito, and queen f7. And we are here. And White's advantage had disappeared. They both have 1 minute on the clock. Do we have a camera of them, by the way?
Well, we see the camera's back. We have essentially half the room is completely empty because all those games are finishing. That's where Robbie was on board 1 for Slew. And yeah, the remaining boards, we've got Texas and Webster. And yeah, we don't see it yet, but Glebden did finish his game. So the camera is going to be adjusting. So probably what I'm talking about has already happened or we missed. But We'll have to wait for it to update.
Who's on the screen?
This, I'm assuming, is Gleb Duden.
Against Harsha?
That's my guess. You tell me.
Can you increase the brightness of your laptop?
Well, the playing hall is pretty
No,
dark. I don't
the
know.
brightness. There you go. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Gleb Duden. So this game
Yeah,
we
the
already.
game already finished.
So probably the cameraman's probably adjusted it by now and is probably looking at their second board, which is
Mhm.
Sean Rodriguez Lemieux.
Big
and
shout out
Lazaro.
to the cameraman. Yeah, let's go. Queen f7, h5. Yeah, I mean it's definitely white here is preferable because of the good bishop against bad bishop, right? Having all the pawns and light squares and having the b2 bishop, but most often than not shouldn't be enough because the bishop on d6 just defends everything, you know, defends c7, e5, and after something like trading queens even sometimes and bringing the king to e6, black should be fine. I probably don't want to take myself just because I allow pawn takes, and I get your pawn to d5, so maybe I would just wait. Then let's say after you something like this. If you take, then just take, bring the king to e6. Black should be completely fine. So in the game, what happened is he played a4, and now Sean is, he's trying to push, I would think. Although he doesn't need to push, right? Because he's board one.
No, these are
One.
board twos. Oh, yeah. Sean's board won.
Right.
But as you also pointed out, every board matters.
That's true.
So,
You're right.
so
In
that
fact,
maybe the match results they don't care too much about as much, but
that's true. I believe in this tournament, since it's individual points, what matters, you should play always, just focus on your board, you know? Because compared to a team match competition, like, I mean, here it's play by teams, but the points that count are individually, therefore, if you have a chance to go for the win, you should just take it, you know? There's no point on just taking a safe draw when every point matters. See, Yasser's game, currently it's also getting time trouble, although Yasser has 10 minutes against 1 minute, which is a big advantage for him. Also, his pieces are more active, apparently. The rook is controlling the h-file, the knight could potentially go to e3 or b4. The pawn on a3 also, funny enough, might become a target for white, you know, once these rooks are traded. So yeah, it looks like white's in pretty good control here, so this might be the comeback for Webster. I think Yasser might be able to win this game, and that would be 1-1 if that were to happen. And then on board 2, we said that Lazaro and Sean, it's still a fight. I think it can go either way. And then finally on board 4, between Jacob Fuss and Emilio Cordova, seems like Emilio was able to do his Peruvian magic.
your countryman.
My countryman, he's able to do his Peruvian magic, and he has been able to put a lot of pressure on white.
Can you take us back and show us how Emilio was able to do this for the Webster team
Let's see.
with the black pieces?
So we were saying, yeah, here we were debating between knight b5 and b3. Ultimately, white played b3, black castle. You always have to castle. Bishop b2, queen e7, just connecting the rooks and waiting to see what the white does. Knight b5, attacking the bishop. Black takes, and brings his rook into the action, right? Jacob just brings his other knight to c3, maybe trying to take on d6 and then play knight b5 once again. And then Emilio plays bishop a6. Interesting move, and probably a good move in the sense of the bishop was already sort of dead on b7, you know? So it's probably convenient for him to trade it for a knight on b5, since otherwise the bishop will become obsolete at some point if he just stays on b7. And also, like, it temporarily stops the knight from taking because of the pin, right? I mean, he could take, but then he would need to waste the time. So he played queen c2 and knight c4. One of the advantages of having the pawn f5 is having this e4 square. Now he took with a pawn. And in this case, compared to what we were saying before, you know, how I was telling you, hey, like, I honestly don't like having my pawns on C and D. In this case, concretely speaking, all black pieces are coordinated in the sense of the bishop is attacking this diagonal. The rook can come to c8. I have a knight on e4, pretty strong, and I think black, yeah, here black is doing great.
Black has to have some serious, I feel like, tactics to justify. I feel like taking and double isolating my pawns willingly, there's got to be some serious reason, and I feel like it's like, as you're pointing out, the c file, right? So there's pressure like on d5. The knight's defending it, but you could trade the knights. But I guess
Yeah,
rook c8 is like a pretty serious threat.
yeah, it is. Also, I would like to point out why I see here that the double pawns are not such an issue. Is because they are not like a clear target. For example, let's imagine for a second that the pawn were to be on c4, now on d5. I'll play something like a4. The bishop is kind of dead. And then I can bring my rooks to d1, double them up, and then put pressure on the d6 and d7 pawns, right? But then since the pawn is on d5, first of all, d6 and d7 are not a target anymore. Then I also have the c file, and basically all my pieces are playing compared to white, who is lacking a little bit of a space. That's the main issue. And after taking, which is what happened in the game, now this bishop has a beautiful square on d3, and things start getting pretty bad for white here. He took, queen takes, and now,
Wow.
yeah, bishop d3 is always annoying. The bishop g2 is also kind of dead after bishop gets on
Why?
d3.
I'm surprised. Does white not take that pawn on e4 after?
The rook on f1 is hanging.
I don't care.
He could though anyway. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're right.
sack that exchange.
Well, let's think. So takes. I take on f1. And do you take on h7 or no?
You could take a check. Why not?
King h8.
Now rook takes back.
Rook takes f1, and then rook takes e3. I think, right? Because the rook on f1 is hanging.
Rook takes
E3. So let me. So like bishop takes, bishop takes,
Oh,
bishop takes.
I see. Yeah.
If rook takes, oh, king f7 is even stronger apparently. Wow. With the idea of
Trapping.
G6.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This should be winning. I was thinking this,
And rook takes
and rook
e3.
takes e3,
Yeah.
but honestly G6, king f7, G6 is stronger.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe from a practical point of view, this is what white should have done. The only issue though is that all black pawns are in dark squares, so it's not that easy for white to create more counterplay after, let's say, G6. You know, like there's not that much counterplay for black. I mean, so sorry, for white after bishop G2. Let's say rook C8. I control the C file. The queen is a beast on F6.
Yeah.
You constantly have to worry about F2. The bishop is trapped by its own pawn on D5. Yeah, it's just hard to create counterplay. That's why he played rook FD1. But after bishop D3, white's position is just kind of sad here. Yeah. He just needs to wait until black penetrates, basically. After queen D2, rook E5. Emilio has this good sense of bringing his pieces into the attack. Rook E5. He doesn't worry about. He knows if rook C8, rook AC1, and I mean, yeah, that's it basically. You know, like
Yeah.
like white stop the threat and that's it. Therefore, he understands that he needs to focus on the king side. You know, where especially now that his bishop is cutting the rook from the F1 square. You know, and the king also from running eventually. He needs to continue with the attack. Rook E5, good move. Queen B2. Queen F7 to move the rook without allowing the trade of queens, so we can continue with the attack, right? Rook D2, and now he took the pawn on D5. That's one pawn.
Now those pawns aren't isolated.
Yeah, no. B4, rook F5, bishop F1, takes, D5, and black is just a pawn up. For real, no compensation, right?
Yeah.
Takes, queen B6. Now H5, great move. Whenever you notice that any of your opponent's pawns in front of his king have moved, they always create a weakness, right? In this case, whenever there's a pawn on G3, pretty thematical to play H5 to create either to take on G3 eventually and open the H file, or play H4 followed by H3 and then create mate threats on G2, right? So H5, good move. And then also if H4 to point out, then we continue. If you say A, I say B. Basically G5 here, and then continue with the attack after rook takes in H4. That's why he went queen d6, and then king h7, preparing, no rush. I think it's important also to always keep control before continuing with the plan. a4, and rook c8 now. Trying to, even getting rook c6, followed by rook g6. This is pretty nice, honestly. Or rook h6 even, sometimes. Rook d1, rook c6, queen b8, and rook f6. Good maneuvering. Now he needs to go back, and now rook f3. And now he's gonna switch the rooks. He's gonna play this one on f3, this one on f5, probably h4, and
He's threatening that
also
right
e3
now, as
right
you
now.
pointed out earlier.
Yeah,
So Emilio is cooking.
he's cooking as the young people will say. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, he's snorkeling. No, is he snorkeling? No, right? No.
His king is on h7, so maybe.
Yeah, rook f5,
Yeah,
queen
defending the
d1.
pawn.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like, this is what I was telling you, about the red button that we were talking about, when to go all in or not. Here, why you cannot go all in anymore? Like, it's just waiting and suffering until black finally converts, and yeah, that's what happens here. h4, and white just needs to wait until.
Oh, it's so painful.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. Queen d1, d4, good move.
Wow.
Of course, if rook takes f2, and this will soon be checkmate. And if pawn takes, then e3, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So d4, excellent move. g4. Now rook c5, threatening rook c1.
There goes the queen.
Queen b3. And pawn takes
and resigns.
Just resigns because you're either gonna lose material or get checkmated. So yeah.
Wow. I guess players from Peru are pretty good.
That's what they say. There are exceptions though, But yeah. Let's see. Yeah, so that means the match is currently 1-1, right? Because Emilio from Western won and Duin from UTRGV won.
Okay, so it's tied and there's 2 games left in this round. I'm trying to see if we can get any interviews before the round is over. And then we're going to have another break before the next round. So next round should start in 2 hours. So hopefully we'll see you all back again then. But before then, we have to see the ultimate conclusion here between Webster and Texas Rio Grande. We've got 2 boards left. Which game do you want to look at?
Let's take a look at Lazaro against Sean because they both have under 1 minute, and it seems like Sean is putting some sort of pressure based on the fact that his pawns are in light squares and he has the dark square bishop, also his rook on h5 pretty nicely just controls these 2 pawns from moving, since the g4 pawn stops them from moving with the rook completed, and also defends d5, so this rook is blocked also. So I think let's count the pawns. 3 against 6, 6, 6. Yeah, so yeah, it seems like white is a favorite here, but we will see if he's able to get anything else in his position, because let's see, every time I try to move the king to d2, there's c6. If I go to b3, try to take a3, that could be a plan. I don't see how black defends against that. Honestly, maybe he will need to play rook a8, but then that frees my rook also,
Yeah, I think that's what has been played.
He played bishop e7, king b3, rook a8.
Rook defends,
rook
and
f5.
Rook moves.
Yeah, this is
so
quite annoying for...
Black's going to be in Zugzwang at some point?
Might be either that, or
he's running out of
or
moves.
he will have.
What's the threat right now, right? The e-pawn?
Rook f4
exactly.
is a threat, and
how do you stop that?
Yeah, no,
you can't.
I don't think
if you try to stop it with the bishop to d6, you're losing your f-pawn.
Correct. And then if you try to get back, I guess after rook f8, maybe the move will be something like rook d8. But then the issue is that once I take on, let's say, rook f8, rook f4, sorry, rook d8, and then once I take on e4, I get a tempi attacking the bishop, right? That's another thing. And then if I were to move the bishop to not have that issue, then yeah, f6 is hanging, right?
Yeah.
And if I go bishop d8, then rook f8, and there's no rook d8. So yeah,
So Sean's winning a pawn at least.
yeah,
Sean has the momentum. Okay,
he
so
has the momentum. You're right.
we've
Yeah.
got an update.
So rook king f7, rook d8.
So now when rook takes on e4, there's no tempo.
Correct. He will still be losing 2 pawns though because of the pawn a3.
The a pawn is now hanging.
But it's a question if you want to give up the pawn on d5 that easily, you know, because even though you're winning the pawn, now the rook activates, right? That gives black more chance for counterplay. So I would think you don't want to release the tension so fast, honestly.
So you would go back to
f5, rook a8, and then I will try to get him to 6-1 somehow. Maybe bishop d4, but then rook a4 might be annoying, and then I have to go back. Or bishop c5 could also be a move there. Yeah, I think I'll play rook f5. I really don't want to allow him to take the pawn e5, because the thing is that the pawn that I'm gaining is basically the one on a3, right?
Yeah.
And then I cannot really create a pass pawn with it anyway. So
Yeah, so black's pawns are overextended and weak. And it looks like we do have that trade, and that's exactly what you were worried about. We see the eval bar coming back for Lazaro Batista, which is good news for Webster, who's hanging in this. So
still a pawn down though. And
Yeah.
also important to mention that, I mean, it's in a you know, when you're playing time trial and you see you can win a pawn and you're playing for 2 results, it's also like you cannot really blame him for going for it, you know. But yeah, definitely rook f5 will have been stronger.
So Sean is rushing into this pawn grab when probably he could have won material without giving up such a strong d pawn.
Maybe
if he was maybe more patient.
Maybe let's say rook f5, right? And then he goes back. How can we win?
I think we bring the king in to win the e pawn.
You mean king c2, king? But let's
That
say,
or
let's say I
maybe we move our
play
bishop.
king c2, rook d8, and then if I go king d2, c6, right? I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of 6-1 at some point.
I think there's got to be a better way.
What if e3 here?
Yeah, e3 going after the b pawn.
Because now my idea will be like if king g6, then I go rook f4, and then after I take, I win a tempi over the bishop. And what do you play here?
Well, sorry, I was thinking of pushing our d pawn maybe at some point when the b pawn.
And give up the.
But I don't know.
To take on b5. That could be.
That's another idea. No, I figured like the a pawn and the e pawn are so weak. Maybe we could just move our bishop somewhere and maybe like bishop back to d2 to c1.
Actually, what you're saying that d6 pawn, it's actually what the engine recommends. Apparently,
Really?
The idea being, I would think, okay, I guess I need to take with the pawn because otherwise f6 will fall.
Yes.
And then rook takes, and then compared to taking the pawn a3 on the other variation, I actually have a pass pawn here, you know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even mind something like rook a5 here, you know, and just trading and getting the pass pawn.
I was thinking, besides this idea, what if we just played bishop to d2?
Bishop to d2
instead of pushing the d pawn.
Bishop d2.
Yeah, the
attacking
idea.
h6, and then if let's say I go king g6 now.
The idea bishop to c1.
And you want to get the pawn that way?
Yeah, we get the pawn.
Interesting.
For free.
Honestly, yeah, I don't see anything particularly wrong with it. Maybe the only thing that will bother me is something like if I take here, maybe rook a4, yeah, and I'm in a constant.
Oh, now our bishop's stuck. But now
I'm stuck basically.
Oh yeah,
the
your rook can't
stop
come
also.
back. Yeah.
And funny enough,
That's annoying.
This is like a Mitchell Suxman sort of.
Okay, well, yeah, I didn't know d6 was the best idea. That was just an idea, but I guess you get the b pawn passed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a nice little tactic that was missed by Sean. So he ends up trading e pawn for d pawn, and the evaluation swings back to about even.
Yeah, I mean he's a pawn up, but yeah, I mean here, the thing is that once again, when you have extra material, it only matters if you can take advantage of it. You know, otherwise, it's kind of useless.
So how's Yasser versus Jose looking?
So this one looks like still a game because he's an extra pawn, but yeah, it seems like Lazaro is defending, and then Yasser seems like his advantage disappear. Even black is on the lead here. So he went for some tactics here.
Free pawn.
Take on f5. If bishop takes, rook f1.
Check.
And no, because rook b2 is also a threat, right?
If we take that pawn with a knight,
Yeah.
do they have an intermezzo? Could they check us
Where?
with the knight?
You mean knight takes f5, knight e4,
Yeah, well, we just take.
bishop takes, king takes, and I take on d6, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I'm worried about something like, let's say knight takes, bishop takes, rook f1. Let's say king e3, for example, right? And then after rook takes f5, let me put on the board. I don't know how good is this, but I was thinking this and rook b2. Yeah, I mean it's saying equal, but I mean in human practice I don't know how clear this is.
So and if we try to defend our a2 pawn with bishop to b3, they capture.
Right, and then you need to be
We
sure
capture.
that you're not.
And now they have a passed a pawn.
Right.
But they can't push right now. But they're gonna move their rook later.
I guess because I have rook a5, I'm on time. But yeah, it's something definitely to consider. He takes rook check, and I think we're gonna see that position on the board right now. After king e3, rook b2, and yeah, I mean technically it should be a draw, but I think black still can cause some problems somehow, especially in time travel. I don't think it's that easy to defend under pressure, you know. Especially seeing like right next to you, like board one loses, you know, board four wins, you know. So like it's you need to be able to control your emotions basically in these matches. Rook f1. Let's see how Lazar is doing.
Going for the rook trade.
He goes for the rook trade.
Yeah, both players under a minute.
Yeah, goes for the rook trade. Yeah, and then I mean, I guess technically White is not that much trouble, because he can always play a4 and start trading pawns. But yeah, then you start seeing like this h4 pawn might start running, and you start getting kind of worried, you know, about it.
But this is very even, right? This should just be held to a draw.
Most likely, yeah, most likely. Let's say Yasser's game, king e5, king e6.
Yeah, this one has the most imbalance, knight versus bishop.
Yeah, of course, the one who is pushing for the win here is black due to its better knight against the bishop and the a2 weakness that the white could potentially have. But it should be around balance, yeah, if played properly.
Yeah, that a3 pawn that we pointed out before, we're getting into that end game. Also, another game earlier, the bishop was the better piece, I believe, for Robbie. And here, the knight, because all the pawns are on one side of the board, right? In Robbie's game, he had pawns on both sides of the board. The bishop was able to influence both sides offensively, defensively. Here, because all the materials on one side of the board, the knight has more value.
Oh, it's a draw
okay,
already.
So they agreed to a draw.
Interesting.
So that leaves us with one final game remaining in this first round. As a reminder, there are 3 total rounds. This is a round robin between 4 teams for the President's Cup Championship. And we already saw St. Louis beat UT Dallas 2.5 to 1.5. And this is the final game of the Webster versus UT Rio Grande matchup. It's tied 1.5 to 1.5. And Sean Rodriguez Lemieux is from
Canada.
He's from Canada. He's from University of Texas, Rio Grande,
Valley.
yeah, and competing against Lazaro Bruzon Batista,
From
who
Webster University.
is from Webster. So both players about a minute left on their clocks, and we see a pawn push going for a touchdown,
Yeah.
but should be a draw. Otherwise, that pawn should be able to be tracked down.
Yeah.
Or do you think it's not so easy?
I mean, only a scenario in which I see White winning is he's, let's say, some magically speaking, let's say we are able to trade the h4 pawn for the a2 pawn, and then I start pushing my e4 and f4 pawns. But even then, like I feel like Black should be able to create a pass pawn of himself on this side, somehow, and should be close to a draw. Yeah, it should be a draw, but in time travel, you never know.
Oh yeah, Lazaro getting down to 15 seconds and down a pawn. So Sean's playing for 2 results.
Yeah, because the match right now it's even, right? Yeah,
It's tied.
It depends on this game. Yeah.
1.5, 1.5. Sean
H3,
with the white
H3.
pieces. He's up a pawn. He's got a push here. Especially, he's got about a minute advantage. They do have 30-second increments, so after every move, 30 seconds gets added back to their clock.
Yeah, most likely they will trade the H pawn for either the A or B pawn.
So as white, is the king gonna run to G4
Correct.
and try to? I mean, how do you trade H pawn for A pawn? How does black get the A pawn?
I was thinking if somehow like I attack the B pawn, then I defend with A3, and then they go for the A3 pawn. That's what I was thinking, but I don't think I'm in time to do that because let's say ideally, just to give you an example. Let's say.
Now why not? If you play let's say we try to save the B pawn with the bishop.
Yeah,
then they push their pawn.
No, they
Oh,
can
they
just take the pawn right away. Yeah, that's the issue because I mean this is what I was trying to get. Like ideally, I would like somehow like I'm missing a tempi basically because I would like to be able to take and then get a bishop on c5.
I think as white you don't play A3.
Right,
I think
no.
You play king G4.
Yeah, no. You shouldn't play A3. But this is what I was trying to achieve. Where I say like why can play for the win. I mean, white is basically winning there. But the issue is that I'm not in time to play bishop d6 because
they'll take or they'll push.
Yeah, they will just take and
they'll take and we don't have time to take the H pawn.
Correct, and therefore I just need to go for the H pawn, give out the B pawn, but then black gets another pass pawn, right? So. Once again, I think what will happen is that white needs to come back with the king. Black will just wait, and yeah, still some chances. I don't think it's completely draw yet, but yeah, we will see. We will see. I guess
this game's going the distance.
It's going the distance, huh? Like the Rocky movie. Have you seen Rocky?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them.
No, not the most recent ones.
No, I mean the Creed ones.
The originals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, great movies. I remember for some tournaments I started watching number 1, 2, 3, and then number 4 is where he fights the Russian guy, right? And he's like, I'm gonna destroy you, and then he pushes the gloves, right? And I was like, damn, dude. But they say Rocky's always hard, that's how he wins, and so that motivated me at some point in some tournaments. Yeah, but here. I don't know if Rocky can help him to win the game. We will see. C5. Sean is thinking.
It's not about how hard you can get hit.
Oh, it's about. What is it about?
It's about hard you can get hit
and get
back up.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's the spirit.
So yeah, Lazaro Bruzon Batista down a pawn, but he's punching right back. He's got a passer of his own.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, most likely Sean will need to bring the king back to c2, I think, to stop the pawn, the c4, the c5 pawn. But I don't know if there's any way to make progress after that. Without the king being able to support the and F pawns. I don't know if there's any real chance to play for a win here. We will see.
But
We will see.
Sean will try.
Oh yeah, he will definitely try. He needs to try. Yeah.
Yes,
100%.
he has to with the extra pawn with the white pieces. But now Sean's under a minute, so yeah, they're basically blitzing out the moves. They do get the 30-second increment, but luckily, we'll see the conclusion of this game shortly as they keep playing. How much longer do you think this game will actually last?
Maybe another 15 minutes.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, and then we have another round at 4.
Yeah, another round in about 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I believe we already know the pairings for that matchup as well. It should be basically the Texas teams are swapping places, or you could argue this St. Louis teams are swapping. We have St. Louis versus Texas this first day, and tomorrow I think it's going to be the interstate rivalries. You'll have SLU versus Webster and Texas versus Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So round 2, we'll see Webster taking on UT Dallas and SLU taking on UT Rio Grande. And right now, SLU is in the lead. So they've gotten 2.5 points out of possible 4. And right now, Webster and Rio Grande Valley looks like they're going to be tied 2-2 unless Sean has something to say about it, trying to give his Texas team the lead over Webster.
Apparently, they already agreed to a draw. He didn't even try.
We expected 15 more minutes from Sean.
I thought so, but maybe
Sean wasn't impressed with our Rocky impersonations.
Maybe, yeah, no, he was like, I want to go home.
He didn't have the eye of the tiger.
Throw the towel, throw the towel, Mickey,
So the players shake hands. Maybe we saw it on camera. I don't know.
Maybe there was no way. Like maybe it meant to happen that he will have to sacrifice the bishop for the C pawn, and then he will take the B pawn, and that was the draw.
So they played it out the rest of the way in their heads.
Mentally, yeah.
Yeah, and so they saw the future, and they decided why waste any more time. It was the last game of the day or of the round, and the players are off taking a break before their next round, which starts, as we said, in about an hour and 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. So at 4 o'clock Central local time, 5 o'clock Eastern. So thanks everyone for being here.